Okay, so we're going to continue working with structures here, building on the previous video that I had dealing with a structure called book, which I had placed in this books.h file here. So there's a structure defined book, what a book is, in this case title, author, Gagne, and the price of the book. Right? Again, we're defining a new data type. This does not allocate any memory. The source file here, I have an include statement at the top. For that header file I created, since it's a header file the programmer created, it goes in double quotes as opposed to the ones in the library, C++ libraries, they go in the less than and greater than symbols. Do not need the using namespace std for my header file because I did not create any namespace within it. So this is the problem we had. We created several books before. We outputted the values, changed the values, and outputted each of the structures. So we're going to build on that. Right? Again, a structure is a new data type, so anything we can do with any of the built-in primitive data types we can do with a structure or a programmer defined data type. So I'm creating a method called addBook that takes in a book pointer, and then another one called addBook also, but this one returns a book pointer and no parameters. Oops, actually I don't want a pointer there, just want a plain old book. Alright, so I'm using as parameters, I'm using as return types, so anything you can do with a primitive data type you can do with the structured data types that we're creating. I'm just going to copy and paste some code here easily to see and explain it. Alright, so here's the add book that has a book as a pointer in the parameter list. I populate the 4 data members that are in that structure for that pointer that's coming in, and then main will have access to that data. Right, simple. I then overloaded the method with another add book. In this case though, no parameters, so it knows the difference when I call them, and it returns a book object. So within here I create a book object, populate the book 4 fields, and then I return that book object. Right? Simple. I can use them as, they're just data types, so I can use them as parameters, I can use them as return types, and so forth. Alright, so let's get using these within our program. Alright, so again, I'm going to paste some code in here. Here I'm creating a pointer to a book, so I did the new on it, so that means we had to add a delete to it, right? Because we allocated temp book. At the end we got to delete it. Don't want any memory leaks going on. Alright, so that would create and call this method because I am passing it a pointer, so it's going to match this parameter list, not this one, so it knows to call this one. So we'll get the book about Bo Jackson. Alright, to call the other one, well, you just call it with no parameters. You give it a book. You assign it to the new book, so there's the new book. I assign the return value of the call to add book with no parameters, which is this one. So it's going to be assigned the object temp here will now be assigned to another book, and then I have access to it. Right. Don't need to delete that one because I didn't do a new operator on it. So if it compiles now and runs, we should have the output of those 2 new books, one being Bo Jackson and one being a Billy Joe book. And I reformatted it a little differently than we were doing before. I set up columns using the set W, as you can see in the output statements there. Alright, but first one I passed in a pointer, the method was able to modify it, and then via the parameters, since it was a pointer, main saw the changes to the object, hence why I can print out the Bo Jackson information. I then have a call to the other add book method there that has no parameter but returns a book. I assigned it to a book variable, and with that book variable in main I can access the information that it was updated within that object. So again, a structure just defines a new data type. You're defining it as a programmer, so you can use it as any other data type would be.